It's easy to forget that Miles Morales was first created in 2011 for Marvel's now-debunked Ultimate Universe line of comics as a replacement Spider-Man to the main Ultimate Spider-Man. Despite Miles' numerous appearances in Spider-Man media both in and outside of the comics, he's been living in the shadow of Peter for quite a while, especially with 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming returning Peter to being a teenage Spider-Man in the mainstream when Miles is also a teenage Spider-Man. Not to mention his unnecessary and mediocre inclusion in the 2017 Spider-Man cartoon I reviewed earlier this year. Luckily, 2018's Into the Spider-Verse, aka Humanity's Peak, balanced giving Miles his own identity as a character and making him true to the Spider-Man legacy. And because 2018 was such a great year for Marvel media, Peter got his own video game developed by Insomniac Games on the PS4, simply titled Marvel Spider-Man, because subtitles are for losers according to 2018's PlayStation hits. This is a great game, and would have been my game of the year of 2018 if not for... Not only was Spider-Man PS4 praised from nearly everyone on the street, but it also made a ton of cash, which probably made Marvel very happy after the last game didn't do that. I swear, that's the only Marvel Infinite joke in the video. On top of being a fun game and telling a great Spider-Man story, there were many opportunities set up for sequels, one of them being Miles becoming another Spider-Man. And now, to launch aside the PS5, we have a mid-quel game starring Miles, titled Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. It also came out on PS4, but I wanted that next-gen experience, so I wasted money and time to get a PS5 at launch. On a side note, the PS5 launch lineup of Miles Morales, Demon's Souls, and Sackboy is really appealing, since it covers a wide range of audiences with IPs people care about. Now that I've beaten the game, I'm gonna tell you why Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales is a great evolution of Insomniac's Spider-Man formula. Miles Morales may be a smaller game in terms of collectibles and content, but I think this leads it to become a more focused and at times more enjoyable experience. There's no frustrating stealth sections where you play as other characters like in the last game. It's pure Spider-Man action, with tiny bits of playing out of suit. Speaking of Spider-Man action, the gameplay is much similar to the last game, with web shooters, punches, dodges, gadgets, and finishers all returning. There's also the new mechanic of bioelectricity, which is super fun to use as a get-off-me move in the midst of battle. Since I played Miles Morales on the PS5, I used the DualSense controller to play it. And not only is it a comfortable controller, but it has this neat rumble effect to select games that makes you feel the actions of the characters. It's really cool next generation stuff. This effect works best with the web swinging. Web swinging is just as exhilarating as the first game, and they somehow made it even better thanks to the improved trick system that smoothly transitions Spider-Man from swinging to flipping. It's crazy to see how far we've come in Spider-Man gameplay since the Spider-Man 2 game from 2004 set the standard that Insomniac nearly perfected in the 2018 game and continues to improve upon with Miles Morales. However, some cracks have come up, as me and many others have experienced glitches on both the PS4 and PS5 versions of the game. They aren't game-breaking, the worst I've seen is the game soft-locking on me, but after I restarted from the last checkpoint everything was swell. But it is annoying to see, and shows that Miles Morales was most likely rushed to meet PS5 launch deadlines. Again, nothing game-breaking, but don't be surprised if you encounter something odd while playing. Insomniac's first Spider-Man outing received a lot of its critical acclaim thanks to its strong narrative and character building. Miles Morales continues this excellent storytelling, with Miles standing out as his own character yet sticking to the core traits of Spider-Man, as even when the situation gets worse, Miles keeps moving forward and constantly puts his life on the line to save the people of Harlem. And you really feel Miles' connection to the people he saves thanks to the side quests. If there's any aspect of this game that I think is better than the original, the side quests are definitely one of them. Not only do I find them more fun to play, but they tell interesting and heartwarming stories about Spider-Man helping out various people in Harlem. From bigger events like stopping a homeless shelter from shutting down, or more personal events like helping people find their cats. It's great stuff. It makes you feel like a true local superhero to the people. I highly recommend doing as many of these side quests as you can, especially since it makes a moment at the end where the citizens help out Miles feel very earned and admittedly brought me tears of joy. The main narrative feels just as cinematic as the last game, but it still knows it's a video game and balances both gameplay and storytelling really well. I don't want to spoil the story since the game is only a month old at the time of this video's upload, but the premise involves Peter leaving town for a few weeks, which forces Miles to take responsibility as New York's only Spider-Man. During Peter's time off, Miles fights various supervillains, and while it's obvious of who these villains are, they don't keep them a mystery for very long so they can explore them as characters for most of the game's campaign, though I still won't say who they are since their human identities haven't been showcased in the game's marketing to my knowledge. The villains provide interesting ideologies that conflict and challenge Miles throughout the game, and while I wish we had more villains to fight against, the ones we do have work well for both the boss fights and the narrative. Writing this review is a daunting task, since I've seen fellow content creators like Dr. Skipper, Brown Table, and Hit Top Films knock it out of the park with their videos on Miles Morales. I was thinking of scrapping this review altogether since I couldn't top those vids, but then I remembered the tagline of this game used in its marketing. Be yourself. Just like how Miles Morales had to establish himself as Spider-Man but stand out in his own unique way by trying over and over again, I have to establish myself as a unique content creator by just going for it. So despite the smaller pool of content to play through, I find Miles Morales to be just as good, if not better, than the 2018 Spider-Man game, and proof that Spider-Man games are in good hands of Insomniac. I'm really excited to see what comes next for the Spider-Man universe, especially with the post-credit scene teasing a proper sequel. Highly recommend picking this game up for either PS4 or PS5 when you can. If you need another selling point, there's all these unlockable costumes, and one of them gives you a cat sidekick. There's an Into the Spider-Verse suit that looks straight out of the movie, and the strike suit is inspired by Kamen the First, so 9.9 out of 10 really makes you feel like a Miles Morales.